Call the work session for the April 10th board meeting to order. First thing on the agenda is the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, is there anything on the agenda anybody wants to change, move, ask about? Oh, okay. Almost silence then. All right, move on to the agenda. Approval of the agenda. Has anybody got any questions on it? Okay, no questions. It's a consent agenda. Okay, easy enough. Don't have any visitors tonight. Spotlight tomorrow night.
That's correct.
Okay. Old business. Substitute teaching staffing services.
All right. Dr. Anthony, would you mind going over some of the information that we've gathered over the last couple of days?
Sure. I know Ms. Joyce made copies of the 3 packets for you. The first one is a survey that PESG gave out in February with surveying the 653 active substitutes. This survey was given around Valentine week. And we have reviewed that information, likewise PESG has as well, and they are working to do additional trainings that were requested in the survey, and then we have some areas that we will be reviewing as well, and found the information very beneficial, and some suggestions to help us to raise our fill rate at each of our schools. The second handout has some of the hard-to-fill schools data that was referenced from the survey, some of the hard-to-fill ones that had some challenges on why maybe there was not as many people going to those schools. And then the third packet has on the cover, the first 2 pages, in overall district absences for the week, and that's the week before spring break. And by school is the total number of absences for that week, and for sub-requests that were less than 1 hour of notice. For that particular week, which of course is a challenging week in general, we had about 6% of our requests made at 7 o'clock or after. So that made it a real challenge that week as well. So still have some work to do on trying to get those numbers up. Of course, we know that sickness does happen sometimes in the morning, and then another big impact also are our teachers and EAs that become sick during the school day. And so sometimes you'll see some data in there on people who had to leave sick, let's say at the half-day mark as well. So you should have 3 packets of information, and again, those are some overviews and hard to fill, and then some good information from the survey. I guess, Mr. Bright, would you like me to discuss some of the suggestions that we have?
Yeah, some of the things that...
Okay, so some of the suggestions is for our principals to continue. You know, we did our presentation last February where we talked about ways to improve our substitute rates, and continue with our principals continuing to track and analyze substitute data. Principals discussing with their teachers about the absences on a regular basis. And we know that it's a priority in our district to make sure that our teachers are present and at work daily. Also, having the principals to continue to examine the calendar, ensure that no PD offerings are planned on Mondays and Fridays. These 2 days are already recognized, as always, as being hard to fill substitute days. And so to kind of combat that, that's an area that the principals have worked hard on, trying to ensure that they're not putting those professional development day opportunities if they are in charge of scheduling them on Mondays and Fridays. Also, we know that there's a teacher shortage, but there's also a substitute shortage just because of our local economy and our low unemployment rate. So being always aware of ways that we can listen to the substitutes and try to improve that relationship. Some of the information, the next few items that we looked at was the substitutes always enjoy the schools that give information on policies, lunchtime, dismissal, and any kind of guidance on what is expected. That helps smooth out their day. Most schools have either a substitute folder or a manual, and that helps to kind of give the substitute an overview for the day and what to expect upon arrival. Also, they also talked a lot about in the survey about enjoying being back at the schools, so that appreciate them, make contact with them, ask them to return, and then even include them in their lunchtime schedules to make them feel more of a part of the school. So that camaraderie that they have with the staff is a big reason why they return to those specific schools. I thought it was always funny, some liked elementary, some wanted to be at middle only, some high school only, so you'll see that in there as well. So people are able to, the substitutes, to sub in the areas in the buildings that they feel most comfortable with. Also, they bragged about the schools that were able to support them if there was an issue with a student. And then the faculty and the students that were treating them always with respect. One of the items that they mentioned that they would like always to make sure they have a building mentor, someone that's assigned to it, kind of like a go-to person, and many times it might be someone in the front office or someone on the same hallway, depending on who is out. Substitutes were very appreciative when their comments was that teachers are very appreciative when the teachers leave thorough lesson plans, so the students are provided opportunities. And then the principals are always requiring the teachers to have emergency substitute plans just in case those unforeseen 7 a.m. calls of illness or having to go home early in case those happen. So they bragged on that as well. Also, at our May policy meeting, we'll be looking at revising policy 5.303 that requests the employees give their supervisors a minimum of 1 day's notice before requesting a personal day. We're going to recommend a 36-hour window for that. So again, currently the language is at least 1 day's notice in writing of intent to take a personal leave. So we're going to kind of increase that by 36 hours on that. And then our final area we were looking at is continuing to review with our administrators, our principals and supervisors on how to handle personal leave that's before or after a holiday. By that same policy, 5.303, the approval of the principal of the school is required for personnel days that are being used on the day immediately preceding or following a holiday or a vacation period. So just again, reminding the principals that they are to first require approval before taking those days.
Ms. Sandby?
There was some discussion, and I will bring some additional detail tomorrow on the pricing grid, the weighted grid that we use to evaluate, which is in one of your tabs. I just wanted to mention on the annualized cost, just to give a little more explanation on that. There were providers who completed the half-day rate as we asked for in the RFP, and there were providers that did not. After talking to Mr. Jeffrey, I went through and did my best to annualize, and it was on the half-day issue. And so the cost figures that I took here, I took 10 weeks, the 10 most recent weeks we had had subs, and did a weighted average based on our actual usage of half-time, non-certified subs, and if we had 120-day subs. But I took I did a weighted average of the full days by the 4 different subtypes we have. And that is, and then extended that on an annual basis for our school year. So I tried to do some weighting, but I did go in and did that adjustment because the half-day rates between the proposals were not comparable. Now, it did not make a difference once I annualized both sets of half-days. It did not make a difference in the overall ranking, but until I did that, it was not an apples-to-apples comparison. We have a lot more half-days than one might think we have, so but I will bring some more detail on that tomorrow night's meeting.
Okay. Stop it. Solutions contract.
Okay. All right, Stop It is a mobile, web-based incident software that allows students and administrators to communicate anonymously to maintain positive school climate. Students can report anonymously via a mobile app or phone hotline service for bullying, cyberbullying, inappropriate teacher-student relationships, violence, threats, hazing, weapons, possession of drugs and alcohol, substance abuse, and intolerance and discrimination. This package also includes a dedicated incident screening service which reviews and triages incoming reports. Stop It will provide a streamlined process and improve efficiency and effectiveness in investigations with Stop It case management system. The contract details August the 1st of 2019 through July the 31st of 2020. Total contract fees will be $25,850.
Okay. I'm assuming Mr. Crim wants to talk to us here.
That'd be correct. Good evening, everybody. Last time we got together, there were a couple of concerns about Stop It. I've had an opportunity to hopefully allay those concerns a bit. It still is the only software package that I've found that allows for the two-way communication and the triaging that we talked about. And that is so critical in a school system of our size because we really don't have the staff to accept messages 24/7 on every small event, such as a minor bullying situation, which could technically, in some of these other systems, go right through and wake a person up in the night. With these folks, you're going to be awakened for those things that are critical and exigent, which I believe is appropriate. One change to that proposal is the contract would run from July 1st of this year until June 30th of next year, 2020. So that's going to be a small amendment we're going to be making on that.
Anyone have any questions?
Yes, ma'am. I'd like to talk a little bit about Social Sentinel.
Let me go ahead and preface this. This was something in one of our keynote, during the keynote up in Philadelphia, that they had a quick presentation of this, and of course, I sent it to Mr. Crim, and he's done a little bit more work on identifying some things that it has that's unique to the program.
Social Sentinel is, first of all, and most importantly in my book, not a geofence. And that's something several of you board members made concern about. Geofence is something that would look at, for example, outgoing emails of students and employees and so forth. This is truly a public domain monitoring process. Social Sentinel is very popular in Florida. I've spoken with two state or county directors of safety in those locations, and one in particular interested me. It was Seminole County, Florida. Seminole's right outside of Orlando, and demographically it's very similar to us. It's a little bit larger. They have 66 schools and 66,000 students. And one of my questions about that to them was, how does this work for you? And is it overwhelming, or do you, can you work with it? And they said absolutely, that it was not overwhelming, and that in the morning they receive emails of these different leads that have come in or hits on the system, and they can vet those individually then and see if they're credible or not. And what the system does, you cast a net around an area. And you say, okay, all IP addresses in a certain area are going to be the ones we're going to look at. So, for example, if we had an Oakland High School, California, in Oakland, California, that's not going to be in our algorithm. And that's important to me because that's a busy school, if you've ever seen it online. And also, places like Riverdale, Georgia, Smyrna, Georgia, we would not be in that demographic when they look at that algorithm. So those things would not come through. I asked them if any had come through, and they said occasionally you'll get one that pops through, but it's obvious that it's not from your area when it comes in. So what happens is then these posts, they key in on the words which might indicate a threat. Okay, and I don't really want to go over those words at this point, but they're significant words that would actually indicate we have a problem with a student or with a school or with a threat to a school. And it allows us to work proactively on those in advance of actually receiving it later. The young man, or the man that I talked to was Captain Francis from the Seminole County Sheriff's Office. And the way they do it there is he's the director of safety for that school system, but he's also a Sheriff's Department officer. I spoke with Mark Gocher from Russellville Public Schools in Arkansas. He loved it. They're a very small school system, 3 schools and 18,000 students. And with Mr. Darren Norris in Sumter County, which is in the central part of the state of Florida, and that's a little bit smaller county, but he also is very positive. They all told me that they have been able to prevent some significant events in the schools, fights, suicides of children that have been threatened after hours as well. And I delivered to you all this morning by email this packet that you have right now, but I wanted to make sure you had it in front of you as well. The price that they originally quoted for me was beyond what we could afford with the Title IV grant, and I went back to them with the frank discussion that I had a certain amount of money available, and that's all I had. And they actually came back the next day and agreed to provide that service to us not only this year but going forward. And I've only requested a 1-year contract on this because we don't know for sure on Title IV monies, and I want to see how it works first.
One of the things for new board members on title money, this is money that if we do not spend, goes back to to our feds. It goes back. We don't keep it. It's not that we're keeping it or anything like that. It goes back to feds.
Yes. No. They do entirely separate things. One, the Stop It solution is for threat reporting, and it's something that would be coming in from a student, teacher, or parent. Whereas this is something that works in a passive environment. It's just reading the web. It's out there looking at, they have contracts with Facebook and Insta and so forth, and they actually have built in many different words that they go out and research and search all the time. And they also have linguists that are working with juveniles all the time to look at slang. Anybody worked in a school, you know the slang changes every 10 minutes. So, you know, they keep up with that as well. So if something comes through under the new slang, it's going to pick that up as well. And that was confirmed by the people I talked to on this in Florida in particular.
Now, Social Sentinel, if I recall, had something that was similar to Stop It, but there was
Correct.
a couple of things you mentioned with Stop It.
Yes.
It was different.
Yes,
Triage.
it doesn't triage. It has a function which is no more cost. It's called Share It. And it runs very similar to Stop It, however, it doesn't have the triaging function. And the people I talked to were not using it. It's a new side product that they're offering, and it concerned me that with the size of our district that we'd be getting an overwhelming amount of information we couldn't process properly. I will be asking for a motion tomorrow night on that as well, so that we can use those monies before the end of the month. And one contingency that they did, and I was in agreement with this, at Social Sentinel, was that they want to have the contract signed and in hand by the 30th of April. So in order to use those monies, I felt that was fair at that price, which they knocked about $26,000 off the price.
So it says Mrs. Page has, on the Social Sentinel, she's reviewed the contract. Have you reviewed both of them? Okay.
And I have received that back as well, for venue in Tennessee, so that's been taken care of. I got that this afternoon.
Okay, any questions?
Good job on the negotiations.
Thank you, Ms. Moore.
You don't ever want to pay full price, right?
I'm not making
Ian,
Okay,
three extension contract.
Yeah, Title III extended contracts. The ESL department will be conducting a 6-week summer school program at Smyrna Middle School, funded completely by Title III funds. These funds will provide 3 teachers extended contracts and transportation costs. The dates for the summer school are June the 3rd through July the 12th of 2019, from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. Ms. Abadelmamasa, I tried, Ms. Virgil and Ms. Anand have agreed to supervise the summer school program. Chip Industries will receive $2,668 to provide transportation.
We've been doing this every year, haven't we?
Mm-hmm.
Any questions? Okay. And we'll move right along. Tenure recommendations.
Okay, we've got quite a few here on 2018 tenure recommendation. The following teachers meet the criteria for tenure in accordance with the new tenure law, which they have to hold a valid Tennessee teaching license, have served Rutherford County Schools for 5 years or 45 months within a 7-year period, the last 2 in a regular, not an interim position, have demonstrated an overall performance of above expectations or significantly above expectation on the team evaluation during the last 2 consecutive years of a 5-year period, or hold tenure under the previous guidelines and return to Rutherford County Schools, meet the 2-year probationary period, tenure is reactivated. And we've got quite a few there. How many total? 167.
You know, it's bad, you've been out of teaching so long that you don't recognize a name on here.
I hear you.
All right, number 12.
All right, number 12. Course.
Go.
Course offered for credit grades 9 through 12 for the 2019-20 school year. You find it in tab 4. The instruction department is requesting permission to offer courses listed in the attachment for 2019-20 school year under the following guidelines. Board of Education Policy 4.201 states in part, a listing of courses offered for credits in grades 9 through 12 will be approved annually by the board.
Okay, any questions on that? All right, move right along to 13, special courses. Why don't you read them tonight and we won't read them?
Yeah, that's fine. That'd be fine. 2019-20 special course requests. The instruction department is requesting permission to make an application to offer credit for special courses under the following guidelines. Rule 0520-1-3-0.05-2A. Local school systems may offer special courses not listed in 0520-1-3-.06 on an experimental basis. The Commissioner of Education must approve each course in advance each year. Rutherford County High Schools are requesting the approval for the following special course requests: positive psychology, anthropology, etymology, Shakespeare II, African American history, global diplomacy, Native American history, U.S. presidency, focus on adulthood, Introduction to Self-Advocacy, Music History, Environmental Tech 1, Environmental Tech 2, and Film and TV Studies.
Any questions on those?
Where are these offered? Every high school?
This is Errol. Can you speak on that, Ms. Martin?
Yes,
Which
sir.
classes, which schools?
Not necessarily, but with the applications that we will submit to the state of Tennessee, we will put all of our 13 high schools on there. So if they are acknowledged and given approval, that any school that may want to pick it up during that approval time period may do so without submitting another application.
And then they have to have them, let's just say it's offered at Open High School. Well, you just said it would be offered. And you had 10 people sign up. That's probably not enough for a course.
No, sir.
Would they go somewhere else and take it?
If it's, that would be a board decision if it was offered somewhere else. It just depends on where it is not offered.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. 14, textbook adoption.
Textbook adoption report, ed-5009 for social studies, you'll find in tab 6. School systems are required to submit textbook adoptions annually on forms provided by the Tennessee Department of Education. The elementary, middle, high school textbook committees are recommending the purchase of social studies textbooks listed for use beginning in the 2019-20 school year through the 2023-2024 school years. You'll find the attached list. Is there anything, Dr. Martin, you'd like to add to any of that?
One of the differences you may notice this year and years past is we have several more that are instructional materials not on the approved state list. You'll notice that the majority of those are AP courses because this year the State Department did not give any textbooks on their approved list for AP. They left that up to each of the individual LEA committees to make those own decisions.
Was that common practice prior to this year?
No, sir, this year is the first time for that.
Was there any reasoning behind that?
AP, they are changing their standards this next year. A lot of them, students will have to register for AP tests much earlier next year in the fall, starting in September and the October time. We usually do that in March or April. And so with that, when students sign up, they will also be given a username and password with that sign up for the test, which will then give them supplemental materials to help them prepare for that test. So we think with the changes of those standards in AP and the changes of that test and the support they're offering students with testing is another reason why the state has decided not to look into the AP book selection.
Makes sense.
Just hope the test works. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, on both of these, the social studies and the world language, since we have a new director of curriculum coming in, would it not be a courtesy to allow him to make this choice?
Absolutely. I think there's a few things that we'll be getting to our new Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction. We have given him privy to this information too, along with other things. But yeah, that's a good point.
And also, I received some reviews today from a group that reviews the textbooks, and I just received it today, so I haven't had the time to distribute it to the board members. So, excuse me, I would like to propose if we can roll this, table it for another meeting later this month or something to give us a little bit more time.
If I may add, we also have a deadline with the state of April 15th for any book selected off of the approved state list. So those waivers do have to be turned in by April 15th. We have until May 15th to submit all other selections to the state.
Anything else?
So the next meeting would be beyond that. Would be on that. So I know the your textbook committee met earlier this year. I would request that we don't wait until before the end of the time limit to give us these to look at.
And if I may, I can explain that process to you. That's something that we start the process earlier in the school year in October. We start with selecting that textbook committee, sending out applications to our teachers who may want to serve on that committee. They also have to have principal approval and signature for that application, so we get input from our principals as well. Once that textbook committee is selected, we submit that obviously to the board for your approval. Once you give us your approval for those committee members, and we do have our first initial meeting, and they all take an oath during that time, and then we begin the process of the adoption, which takes several months. So we have been working, I can speak to the three coordinators, we've been working since October.
Well, oh, I'm sure you have
Just
it.
made our selection at the end of March.
You know, I think probably to Ms. Sharp's point, and of course for most of the board members here, I think you're aware, of course, from the concerns that were expressed 6 years ago and have continued to be expressed about some of the content of these history books that are being published now, that those concerns are still there. But I don't know that readdressing that or going through it again this year is going to make any difference or not. But to Ms. Sharp's point, if we have some feedback that's come in from a group that's been reviewing these textbooks for those kind of concerns, I certainly think it's worthy of the board taking a look at before we make a decision or vote on these texts. So.
And it's not a whole lot. I mean, there's like 6 or 8 documents. So that's something that I can certainly send out tonight for someone to review.
Anyone else? Okay.
We're-
Our language, number
Yeah.
15.
School systems are required to submit textbook adoption annually on forms provided by the Tennessee Department of Education. The high school textbook committees are recommending the purchase of the world language textbooks listed for use beginning 2019-20 through 2023-2024.
Questions on that? Okay, facilities use.
Yeah, facility use approved for exemption pursuant to Board Policy 3.206, public education, schools and institutions, post-secondary education institutions, private universities and colleges, governmental entities or agencies that provide benefits to the Rutherford County school system or have an in-kind relationship approved by the Director of Schools may request the Board of Education to allow an exemption from the use of facilities fee, which the board may allow or deny based upon details of the specific requests. The following groups qualify for exemption. The Board Christiana Community Baseball and Softball Association, the baseball, softball games and practices at Christiana Elementary School and Christiana Middle School, the JPJ Foundation of Murfreesboro, the Charity Youth Basketball Tournament at Oakland High School. Now, this is our conservation board, is that correct? With the Christiana? Okay. And the, of course, the Joe Peoples Foundation has been with us for quite a few years. Money gathered there through these, this charity basketball game is given back to our students in scholarship money.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, number 17, discipline.
All right, number 17, student discipline appeal. The board has requested to review the March 15, 2019 decision of the disciplinary hearing authority to uphold the decision to remand a student to alternative school. The student was remanded for conduct prejudicial to good order and discipline. This review is pursuant to the provisions of policy 6.317. I think you have a copy of that appeal information.
Yeah. We do have a copy, so we'll look that over and decide what to do tomorrow night.
Can we go back up, please, on this information only?
Sure.
This Rutherford County Retired Teachers in Tennessee Valley Quilters Association, correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Page, this was a money-making venture, is that correct? Gotcha.
All right. Famous insurance update. Everybody wants to hear that.
Our new insurance director, Ed Elam, was introduced to us, and we did approve January 2020 medical insurance rates, and those are the legal-size pages, some colored, some not, that y'all have. And we have a 5% increase for the copay plan, 7.5% for the deductible plan, 2% for the HRA plan. We also, January 2020, as an employer, we dropped to paying 81% from 82% on dependent spouse coverage plans for copay and deductible. We're not dropping any further on the HRA plans. We hit the desired contribution levels for those two. And our consultant, Mercer, and Jay Brown with Mercer, Lois Miller was present at the meeting. We were very pleased to have these rates. It's a kind of a weighted average increase for us in the 3.25% range, which is pretty good. And we discussed the possibility of adding a health spending account plan, but that would be January 2021. This would be a year of looking at it and the pros and cons of that.
Mr. Simic, I didn't think an employer was allowed to do an HRA and an HSA
We'll be looking at
together. Are we looking at changing?
Some concerns have been expressed since the deductible plan has been grandfathered and will be, if, as Ms. Miller said, if it drops below 300 participants, it's a little over 400 right now, it won't be economically viable to continue. So looking at another type plan to have. So they will be looking at those different issues as we move forward. Yeah. An HSA is something that is discussion. And the medical insurance, the life insurance, the cost of our $35,000 employee policy is going to 8.1 cents per thousand per month. I think the bidder, I don't know, really wanted the business, but anyway, it was running at a loss, and this 8.1 cents per thousand, the 34 versus $19 should be about what it takes for them to break even on that product. And so that change was approved. A motion was made that would have put working spouses with an employer-provided ACA-compliant medical insurance plan eligible to join the county's plan. The group that was removed in January 2016, that motion failed. And that is all, unless y'all have any questions.
I'm sorry I had to miss the meeting. As you know, I was out of town. Did I see, and I read correctly, about the decision on the spouse coverage? That's final then, or is it still, because I know that was a pretty hot topic of conversation at the month prior?
Level.
Okay, so it was voted down by the committee?
By the committee, yes.
And we did determine then for sure that the plan had to meet HCA levels before they would
Yes.
consider it one where the employee spouse was not allowed to take our plan?
Yes.
Okay, that gives me some peace of mind, so after those conversations, thank you.
And these proposals will go to the Budget Committee Thursday night, and then to the full commission. I'm off on the weeks. They went to Budget Committee last week, full commission this week.
And everything went through the budget?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
You want to have? Okay, move right along. Director's update.
Yeah, what I'm going to do is give you an opportunity, kind of, before I go over this tomorrow, look at the U-Science report that we have. This is the high school one that we have. We did have one for the middle school also. And as we go through this, can give you a chance to look at this. This is what we're investing in terms of identifying aptitudes of our students and trying to give them direction as far as things that they're, have a strong aptitude for, and making sure that they're placed appropriately. There's some really some eye-opening things when we look at broken down by gender and things of that nature. One in particular is engineering. We've got more, in this report here, you'll find that we have more females with engineering aptitude than we do males. So it's some good information. I'll kind of break it down tomorrow and kind of go over. It compares their interest with their actual aptitude. And one of the things we always talked about in terms of providing this pathway for success is a lot of times when young people go through high school over the years, they go into college and they go into an area that they think they really want to major in, and they change their majors, or that perhaps maybe they go ahead and go through that major and figure out that this is not really what I want to do. So this is another way that we're trying to align, their pathway for success, so that when they do identify and discover what they're good at, that's what they invest their time and quite frankly, money into as a family unit. And one other thing, on Saturday at 9 a.m., those interested, we're going to, there's some commissioners, new commissioners, along with some older commissioners, that want to take a trip to and tour the stadium, specifically at Laverne High School and Smyrna High School. We'll start at Laverne High School first, primarily looking at the restrooms and the concession areas. This tour is for information only. The commissioners will come along. I know we've done this. Probably some of you are here on the board now have done this, but I think this would be a good idea to let them see this again. There are some concerns as far as safety is concerned, and so we can have another fact-finding mission.
Are we taking a van or just meeting?
That's what my question would be. We can do that. If I guess we can get a number of who would like to meet here and go down, or just meet us at Laverne. And from Laverne, we'd go over to Smyrna.
I think I had responded to the email, but fortunately or unfortunately, I'm out of town this weekend for a college visit with my son, but I was fortunate enough to be able to go on the tour a couple of years ago, and certainly pushing forward on getting those repairs done is certainly a priority for me, so if you need my support in any way, let me know.
I'll just meet you there since I'm close, so.
Hodge, we'll meet you there. Meet us there. I can do that. Okay, we'll meet there at 9 o'clock. That's something that we've asked for many years, and so far we hadn't got it, but I guess we asked long enough, maybe we'll luck up. Okay, Ms. Johnson, TLN.
I'll have something for tomorrow night.
Okay, Mr. Hodge? I don't have anything right now. Okay, thank you, sir. General discussion?
Mr. Chairman, if I might, I'm confused on if we could turn back to number 14 and 15 again, textbook adoption report. What's I realize we don't vote tonight, but do we have a plan here of, Ms. Sharp, you said you had some material?
I do that. I just received today, so I will get it out to you tonight.
So it's, I'm gonna get an email from you about,
Yes, sir.
okay. I'm curious as to who that's from.
There's a group of women that have studied these textbooks for a number of years. That's actually how I kind of became interested in running for the school board.
And this is the social studies textbooks for middle school and high school?
I have several reviews, and there's 3 of them from the list that are within that review.
If I'm not mistaken, one of those reviewers that helped with those reports is also a constitutional attorney out of West Tennessee.
And I believe he's on the state, he's on the state.
He's on, is it the state school, not the state school board? one of the, he's on the State Advisory Committee for the textbooks, so he's already spoken on those, but I think he's got a report in there that is worthy of everyone looking at, so.
And it may be something that everybody's okay with. It's the Social Studies 8, the U.S. Government and Civics, and then the Positive Psychology.
Well, Ms. Martin, how many social studies textbooks, subject areas do we address in a year? I realize I guess that's all grades, and I guess it's geography and civics and history and world history, and I mean, that's got to be a lot of subjects.
Yes, sir. Obviously, for the high school, you're looking at a lot of different separate courses. Between the world languages and the social studies, just in 9-12, you're looking at 46 different textbooks that we will be adopting. For your K through 8 adoption, you're looking at, they're actually adopting K-5 and then 6-8, even though we do have 2 publishers per each of those content areas this year. K-3 will have an adoption, and then there's some separation with the middle school as well, picking the best book to support those standards. I have a copy of an example of a screening instrument that we use for those courses. Obviously, there's a lot of those. I have brought the U.S. History and Geography instrument that we use and our committees go through. It's provided by the state that looks at the standard support. It also looks at the rigor, make sure that supplemental materials, we look at that and what's offered by each of the textbooks. So each of our committees at the very beginning of our process, once they're approved to serve, we complete a needs assessment of what we are looking for in a textbook. Obviously, at the top of that is ensuring that the standards are covered appropriately. And then we also complete a screening instrument for each of the textbooks that we're considering. That looks a little bit different at the grade bands. For example, in the elementary setting, they had, I think, one K-5 book that was on the approved list. For us in the social studies areas and different content areas, we may have 4 or 5 different textbooks that we are looking at and we're analyzing and we're screening. So that takes quite a bit of time for our textbook committees to go through each and every book and complete. My screening instrument, for example, for social studies is a total of 33 pages. So going through that for many different textbooks takes quite a bit of time to help us make the best decision for what we will be using with our teachers and students.
These are community members, parents, yourself, of course,
Yes,
other
sir.
staff members, perhaps, teachers.
Yes, sir. So we have teachers from across the district. That application that we have them complete looks at years of experience, again, has some information from them and their experience with our school system. Also, we have principal recommendations. Then we also have a parent serve on the textbook committee for each of those, and an expert within our community as well. And then the 3 coordinators, we all serve on our appropriate grade levels.
Thank you.
So Ms. Sharp, you'll have those out to us, to
I
everybody
will,
this evening?
I will. And it may not be enough to change your mind, but there's some inaccuracies in some of these books. And, you know, I'm not trying to take anything away from the textbook committee. If we're going to approve these, we need to know what the inaccuracies are.
A lot of material to cover.
Okay, anything else?
Representative Charlie Baum is speaking to us on the 24th. Have I got that date right?
That's correct. 24th.
He's speaking to the Murfreesboro City School Board tonight, so I'm sure they will warm him up for us.
Well, don't they vote tomorrow?
Still 2 weeks out. Still 2 weeks out.
You're talking about the ESA, Dr. Bill? Is that what you're referring to, Mr. Estes, on the vote?
I thought I heard on the news that they were voting tomorrow on vouchers or savings accounts.
It was my understanding it was going to finance this week.
Okay.
That was my understanding, but
Well, the
I can give you
news could have
definite
said it
feedback.
wrong, so.
I'd have to say, in the interest of full disclosure, I consider Representative Baum to be a friend of mine. That doesn't mean that we disagree on just about every issue involving education, because we do, and he's aware of it, and I'm aware of it. But if I'm not mistaken, the director can correct me right now, didn't he call us and request to speak to us?
That is correct.
And he clearly didn't, I didn't suggest that to him. I'll tell you that right now. I've been fine, but I think that says something.
Mr. Spurlock, when he reached out to you, did he give you an idea at all of what he wanted to talk about, or?
He did. He said he would like to speak on his reasoning of being for the educational savings account.
Okay.
Okay, anything else? If not, we're adjourned.